Welcome back to our third podcast, everyone, with Rollforming with Ron. Today, my guest is Tim Laguardia. He's been with New Tech now, what, a little over a year?
Year and a half, almost a year and a half.
Almost a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to kind of get his background and where he came from in this industry, what he's done, and all the stuff that has happened since he started working here. So with that in mind, Tim, why don't you tell us where you started in this industry and kind of the path that you've taken and ended up here.
Well, thank you, Ron, for that fine introduction. I have been in the roll form industry for about 24, 25 years. I started out in 1995 working for Knutson Manufacturing here in Colorado. I was there for 6 years, worked on mostly the stud machines, elbow machines, downspout machines, stuff like that. I didn't do much with gutters. I didn't do much with the roof panels there. And I did a lot of their electrical work. And then as time went on, I became pretty good friends with Ron Schell there. And he kind of showed me the ropes and showed me how to do a lot of different things. And he was the one that actually got me into traveling. So I started traveling with Knutson to do service and helping him out mostly in Texas for a gentleman named George Helmer that had his own business out there. He was a distributor for Knutson for a long time. So I would go out there periodically and help him. And that ended in around 2000. I left Knutson, went and tried a few things for a couple of years and was talked into getting back into the roll form industry at Zimmerman Metals by Bill Ortega, who has been
I don't know Bill.
Been around for a long time. He was at Knutson as well, so I kind of knew him. He kind of overlapped. He was on his way out of Knutson when I was going in, so it was back then. So he had called me up and wanted to know if I wanted to get back into it, and that was with Zimmerman Metals, and that was in 2003.
And what capacity did he want you? What was he hiring you to do? Electrical or?
No, back then it was just assembly, adjusting, stuff like that. So I was just starting all over again. So I got back into it, but it didn't take long for them to want me to start getting out and
traveling around,
doing trainings, and that's where it started. And starting in probably around 2006, 2007, I started traveling a lot for Zimmerman Metals. I was probably gone a couple times a month, but I would do on-site trainings all over the world. Been to a lot of different places.
So you setting up as like somebody that has the machine and needs training, like one person, or was it 6 people at a time?
It depended. Sometimes it was one person. Sometimes I've trained groups of 20.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
There was a company in Wisconsin that there was literally probably 20 people there. Ended up having to go back and do it again, but there was a lot of people there. So I did a lot of training with them for a while. And then with Zimmerman, I got into the management side of it, and they put me in charge of the roll form division, where basically I would kind of let the guys do their own thing, and they would assemble everything, and then I would go out and mostly do the service and training again. That started slowing down probably around, I hate using this term, but around COVID time. Of course, the traveling started slowing down. The gentleman that I worked for, Bruce Pearson, that was there a long time, he retired, and so I took over for him doing all the sells. So I would then sell the machines, do all the phone calls for service, and my traveling really slowed down. I didn't do that nearly as much, and just kind of ran the crew out in the shop to do their own thing. That lasted until, of course, 2022. And that's when a friend of mine was working here. And one day I called him up and I said, I think a few people might know me over there. I said, just let them know that I'm interested and I'm looking. And it didn't take long to get a phone call.
No, I bet not.
and it was a relief. And came aboard here in April of last year, so I guess not quite a year and a half. Once I got here, it was a game changer. They brought me in initially to do trainings in-house on
panel machines?
all panel machines.
So did you have a chance to actually learn on equipment first, or?
It took me, I was here probably 3 months before I started doing my first trainings.
All right.
So it didn't take long. I mean, you've been in this way longer than I have. A roll form machine is a roll form machine.
Yeah.
If you look at them long enough, they all do the same thing. They form the metal the same way. They react the same way.
Yeah.
They might look different.
Yeah, but the basic principle is there.
You bet.
I agree. Yeah.
And so it didn't take long to kind of get the gist of it and figure out how to do everything. And, it was an easy transition for me. And working here, it was really easy because you have the support.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of different people I can go to if I need help. I never had that before.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
So
really.
that's a big thing. So it didn't take me long. I already started going to some places for here and doing a little bit of traveling as well. And I was also brought in to eventually help the management out and be an assistant manager, and that became truth after the first of the year this year.
Yep.
And so now I'm the assistant manager of the service department.
And I must say you're doing a great job because
Thank you.
It shows.
Thank you.
Your knowledge of not only our equipment but the electrical and all the other stuff you learned in the past really shows up here. So that's definitely a plus for this company.
I used to, when I was doing hiring for Zimmerman, the first thing I used to always tell people is that you can't go to school for roll forming.
That's true.
It's very hard to find help. Mm-hmm. You're mostly starting from scratch and learning all over again. So it's kind of nice to know that there was a place where I can go and fit right in, and I think I've done that.
Yeah, I agree. You have totally done that. Now, having said that, the differences between what Zimmerman did, that machine, let's take the roof panel, the big one, compared to ours, there are a lot of differences.
There is.
And you have to learn all the little quirks. Mm-hmm. The basic principle is the same, but they all have, it's just like a Chevy and a Honda, right?
Right.
Same kind of thing.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, some of the biggest differences for me is it wasn't as much as learning it, but as far as the visual goes, the way the width adjustment worked in the Zimmerman was both sides moved.
Right.
And it was suspended up at the top of the machine. So the profiles hung down to where here you're only adjusting one side and everything is mounted on the bottom and comes up.
A lot easier access.
Yeah. And then of course doing profile changeovers are, I think, a lot simpler. There's less, it sounds funny, less hardware, less weight.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier. They're a little bit easier to access. The frames of Zimmerman's were a lot bigger. Everything was a lot heavier.
So let me ask you a question before we get off target here. The adjustments when you're putting in a tooling set on a Zimmerman, I've never done that before. Is there a lot of measuring and that type of thing, or does it just bolt in and it's lined up?
So when you're initially building the profile, we actually had setup sheets, just kind of like here. So you can actually build and set up a profile to where it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And we all have just like here, you have your neutral settings where you start. Neutral settings, we use a lot with that term, basically helping people in service to get back to where we started here, to help people kind of start over. And we had those neutral settings in all profiles. And we would start with that, and just like here, it wouldn't take long. The camber adjustments, the uphill and downhill adjustments, worked the same way.
Okay.
They were very easy. Everything's really easy to do.
And did they use a lot of eccentric shafts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, same
Just
way.
Curious.
A lot of eccentric for angles. you know, as far as the 90 goes. As far as the snap adjustments, here you use eccentric shafts to bring the rollers in. At Zimmerman, they were slotted holes with shafts through them, and then you had a set screw.
Oh, the push on it.
So you basically had set screws this way, so you can move this way to open it up, this way to close up the snap. So here they're eccentric shafts. Same concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Dies were the same. Shear was the same. You know, so it didn't take long to learn.
Yeah.
I'm still
well, it's
stuck with
obvious.
gutter
I mean,
machines.
you're doing quite well here, but you know, in your defense, you've never done gutter machines until you got here. So
there was a time at Knutson, you know, because back in those days, gutter machines were
huge. Oh yeah.
I mean, I remember times where, you know, they would easily ship out, you know, 15, 20, sometimes a week.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a big deal back then. And when we would slow down, so the department I worked in at Knutson, we called it the custom department. Basically, when R&D would develop a new machine, they'd send it to me, and I'd build it for the first time, and that's how we would test it. That's how the stud machines came about. That's how some of the downspout machines, the elbow machines, you remember K-Guard?
Yep.
That's how the K-Guard machine started out, was in the custom department at Knutson. So that's kind of what I was doing over there. But as far as the gutter machines, I never really had a chance to do it. Every once in a while, I would go over there and help out when they got really busy, and I slowed down. But I think you know that gutter machines in the 90s and your gutter machines now are a world of difference.
Oh, yeah.
They're not even
absolutely
close to being the same thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know, back then it was there were no really set up dimensions. Everything could move anywhere, and you just kind of had to figure it out.
Well, even like the roof panel machines back then, the gutter machines, the stud machines, everything. You know, there was no suspended drive system in these machines. They were all driven and formed by the forming rollers.
There you go.
So in order to get a straight panel, you were always stretching edges.
Yep.
Remember, you were
Changing
adding pressure,
gaps,
taking
yeah.
away pressure. So when you started out with those machines, you always had to gap them first
Yep.
with feeler gauges. The whole machine, what a nightmare.
And then change those gaps if you're changing material.
Yeah. And then if you went to a different material thickness, you had to re-gap everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally different. Yeah.
Totally different now.
I agree.
So,
Well, you've touched a little bit on gutter machines here. I mean, you have the ability to go out there and, and do some things now. And I think you'll just get better and better at that as time goes on. Just got to get more exposure to it.
I need to get down and work on them a little bit more. I mean, I've said this before. I think there's a lot more adjustments in a little gutter machine than there is a roof panel machine.
Well, yeah, and it's, if you really look at it, now if you take out the hydraulics and all the other stuff that's in a panel machine that a gutter machine doesn't have, a gutter machine is actually more complicated to adjust than a panel machine.
It is. And I believe that.
You know, it's because you got the two bottom corners, and then you got a big curve, and it's 5 inches away from the bottom, right? Versus 2 inches away at max.
Once you get a panel set in the machine, your biggest adjustments are your uphill and downhill.
Uphill and downhill, and squaring your legs up is about all you do.
Or getting a good snap, which isn't a big adjustment at all. And the gutter machine, when you got all those little adjustments that moving one thing can do a lot.
Oh yeah.
Where you got your into the house, out of the house, uphill, downhill, twist.
Yeah. There's a lot goes on there.
A lot going on there. So I'll get them down. I'm starting to train on them on the gutter machines as well.
Yeah, you'll
get
little
by little. So
yeah, I think it's more important right now that what you're doing right now with the panel machines is a very important part of what we do. I mean, I can see just from you going over these machines before a customer comes here for training or before a machine leaves here is huge. I mean, we didn't have that before.
Yeah, and it's important that they get what they paid for, because these machines can travel a long way by road, by boat, just to get to where they're going. And you don't know how they're going to show up. So the last thing we want is to make it worse.
Well,
by
yeah,
sending
we
something
want it to
out.
be correct when it leaves
Yeah.
here, and then when it gets
So
there,
it's
hopefully it
important that
stays.
we go through these things and QC them and make sure that they're exactly right. And
I agree. The training that you do when you go out and train people on a machine, or even here in the factory, I mean, you take that from square one.
yes,
Right?
yeah, we start at the beginning. You know, it's in my opinion, even if you're a previous owner of a machine, we're changing things, we're making things better all the time. In my opinion, it's very important to get training on these machines. Everybody should have it, and not just the owners. Owners, you should always bring your operators
Yeah,
with you.
I was going to say the operator is actually more important than the owner.
Oh yeah, because a lot of times you get customers come in and they want to train on the machine, and they're the owner of the machine.
Right.
So right away they tell you, well, I'm going to go back and train my own guys, and then right away you're like,
Yeah, you've just lost
yeah,
90%.
Not a good move. So it's very important to get training, and it's very important to bring your operators with you. But we start from the beginning, and my key, the way I like doing it, is I'll go through the manual page by page.
Yep.
Because we want to make sure that the customer knows that I'm not just feeding them stuff out of my head, which we can. I could do that.
Sure.
I could talk out of my head all day long. People know that. But the best thing to do is I read straight from the manual, page by page, so they know that they can always reference back to it.
That's a good way to do it.
And I also
Absolutely.
bring up the fact that we have lots of videos on the website and on YouTube, because they need to know that a lot of this stuff that we're going over with them, they can refer back to before they call the service department.
Absolutely.
Because that's what, we need to stay available for people a lot, all the time. And the worst part is when you get people that call up that are asking questions that you just went over.
You just can't get over it.
Yeah. So that's what we do is, I start with the manual and I go through the manual with them pretty much page by page. And then, we'll go over feeding the material, loading the material.
Yep. Well, and I think that's good because with the customer here, you're going through all this stuff. And then in the end, he's approving the panel that came out of that machine.
Yes.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
Right?
They're looking for all kinds of, they're looking for flaws and everything, because a lot of these guys that get machines for the first time that have never owned one before are used to getting drops.
Yeah.
And we both know that when you get a drop, those panels
They're not
don't
usually good.
necessarily look very good.
Yeah.
So when they see this panel for the first time, they get excited because they know that now
Yeah,
this
I
is
can
what
actually
it's supposed
control
to look
this
like.
now. Yeah.
And you can control it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you bet. So a lot of times they're really excited. It's fun to train. It's a lot more fun to do training than service, because service customers aren't always too happy.
That's true.
Training, they got a new toy and they're usually pretty excited. So it's fun. I enjoy doing it. I love seeing the customer's reaction when we're doing different things. And a lot of times you bring them back there in our shop for the first time and say, okay, here's your machine. And they're like a little kid in the candy store.
yeah,
And I'm like,
absolutely.
oh my God, it looks so nice. And
Yeah.
so it's fun. It's fun to see their excitement. And
Well, I think you brought up a good point earlier, and that was the videos and the information that are on our website are very, very informative. So if anybody's having any trouble, before you call us, you can actually get on there and find videos on just about anything you need to look at as far as a panel machine goes.
And if you can't, make a suggestion and we'll make it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
there's
that's what we're
something that
all
we
about,
can't
is
find,
trying to service the customer without having to come here or calling us. If you can do that on your own, you're just learning that much more, and that makes us look better too, because we actually have the answers for you on that website. So, well,
In my opinion,
people
coming from training.
that have the old SSP, for example, and they switch over to an SSQ, definitely need training, because that is a total different animal.
Yeah,
you know,
is.
it's just totally unique compared to what's out there.
Yeah,
So that is huge.
we're trying to, upgrade and design and get with the times, and we have a really good engineering department over here, and they take requests as well. So anytime that I talk to a customer, or if I'm out on site training or here, And people ask me, hey, why don't you do it this way, or why can't you do it that way? And believe it or not, we do listen to people.
Absolutely.
A lot of these redesigns and stuff that we have on the machines come from customers.
Yeah, I mean, customer, you hear the same thing over and over, the same thing that you actually can come up with a solution for, and that's what we do. So we always have looked at, listened to the customers, and their input is invaluable. So that's one thing that I think that separates this company from most of the others, and it always has, is that we listen to our customer base, and we're really that's an important thing for us to do.
Yeah.
And that's what helps us keep moving forward.
Yeah, with us changing as much as we do, the training, once again, it's very important for people to come in and train on these newer machines. With the computers changing, the software's changing.
That's a huge thing right there. That computer, you definitely need to come in and get trained on that. Yeah. For sure.
And it's very easy to reprogram yourself once we do have new software available. You can do that on the website.
You mean to upgrade the...
Yeah, so you could, in our two new unique controllers, if the software needs to be upgraded, like the older PLCs or AMSs, sometimes you had to send them to us to update the programs, where now you can actually get on the website and download the software and do it yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's a lot of that thing's a lot of it's a lot easier. So we do listen.
Again,
listen to the customers.
That's our quest, is to make things better, and we continuously do that. Every day. So
we had a company buy. When I was at Zimmerman, we had a company buy some machines, a few machines that were in Dubai. So it started out where I really wasn't interested in going, and we kept going back and forth, and finally they said that they wanted me to go out to them because they had too many people that needed to be trained, which that usually is what happens. Usually the bigger companies that have a lot of employees, they're the ones that want you to come to them. And that's what happened with this situation, and I was still trying to get out of it. I really didn't want to go. And so that was when Bruce was still at Zimmerman. I told him, I said, well, you tell them that I'll go, but I go how I want. And I fly how I want. And, well, if anybody knows about Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they don't blink at money.
That's right.
They said, okay. So I got business class round trip airfare ticket to go to Dubai. They put me up in a great hotel. I had a personal driver that would pick me up and take me wherever I wanted to go.
Did you have a tiger with you? Was there a tiger with you?
No. A funny story though is before they gave me the driver, the lady that owned the company sent her assistant to pick me up from the hotel. And on the way back to where we were working, she got lost. And we ended up on the highway that takes you from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. And we were way out there. And this lady panicked, and I almost said the bad word, but she stopped in the middle of the highway and put her hands like this and just started crying.
Oh my God.
I'm lost, I don't know what to do. So there's me from America pulling up my phone, got on maps and figured out how to help her get to the shop.
Really?
But yeah, she stopped right in the middle of the highway, and I'm like,
wow.
And that was all because I said I wanted a cup of coffee too.
Well, that'll teach you to have a cup of coffee when
you're in
Dubai,
hotel
right?
Before you leave in the morning. But it turned out to be a great trip. It was hot. It was in July. So if you want to go to Dubai for vacation, don't go in the summertime.
Go in November.
Yeah, it was about 105 degrees with 100% humidity. So the heat index every day was anywhere from 115 to 120.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was tough.
So how long were you there?
I was there for 6 days.
Did you get to see any of the sites?
I did. They got two machines. And normally two machines, they're like us training on two machines here. They're very, very similar. And if you learn how to do one thing on one machine, it's the same on the other. So I told them, I said, I need 2 days. They insisted on 4 days there with them. I talked them down to me going to the shop for 3 to let me have a day to drive around and see some sights. So I was there 2 full days and then a half a day for the third.
Wow.
Which worked out, because then the last day they had the driver come and pick me up, and we just started going everywhere and seeing as much as I could. They gave me my own cell phone out there, so I didn't have to use mine.
Wow.
Like I said,
they treated you pretty good.
Oh, it was a great trip. It was a great experience. Just to see how everything worked out there, and the way all the buildings are built, and just the sights. It was a cool trip, and that was one of many.
How long ago was that?
That would have been in 2018, I'm gonna guess.
So that big tall building they got there.
It was there.
Was there.
I
Did
went
you go up to the
inside
top of it?
I didn't go to the top because one thing the lady that ran the company, she kept telling me is that with my personal driver, she said, you do not tip them, you do not buy them lunch, you do not give them anything.
Really?
And I said, why is that? And she said, because then they're gonna want it from us, and we don't give that to them.
Wow.
I didn't listen to him. I felt bad. I bought the guy lunch, one day.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I want to go to the top of the Burj Khalifa. And he says, I'll wait for you. And I said, no, come with me. I said, easy. We'll just go up there really quick. So we go to the little desk where you go up there, and the tickets to go to the top were like 150 American dollars.
Whoa.
And I looked at him, I said, I don't even want to go up for that.
Yeah.
So we didn't do it, but it's attached to a huge mall that has a ski resort in it. Yeah, inside of it.
Whoa.
It has a huge aquarium, and so that was pretty cool. And then they drove me out to that man-made Palm Island.
Yeah.
And when you first start, it's like a highway that goes through the trunk of it. And as you're going up the trunk, either side are like little homes and a mall area. And then you go down into this tunnel, and the tunnel is glass. So now you're inside the ocean.
Really?
So it looks like you're in an aquarium, but it's the ocean that you're inside. And then when it spits you out, you're at the very tip of the tree of the Persian Gulf. And so it was quite the experience. So
when you're driving through this, right? You're driving down the trunk before you go into the tunnel.
Yeah. So it's
you can't see what it is.
No, you don't know.
You don't know what it is. It just looks like a regular road, right?
And then you get on the very tip, and there's a huge Atlantis hotel. The Atlantis is pretty popular in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
But there's an Atlantis hotel right on the very top. So I went in there, walked around that place. It has a huge mall. So it was cool to see. I'm glad I ended up going. It was a long flight.
Oh yeah.
So I flew from here to Frankfurt, Germany, which was about 9.5 hours. And then from Germany to Dubai was an additional 7 hours. And then on the way home, I flew direct from Dubai to Toronto, and it was 14 hours. So, but I had a pretty good seat, so I didn't complain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that was a great story, man.
Yeah, so that's not the only one. I've been to a lot of cool places.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun, met some really great people. Met some questionable people, but that's our industry, man. You get it all.
Yeah.
You get it all. Some days you're going to go to Hawaii or Dubai, or I've been to Costa Rica. I've been all over Canada. I've taken float planes from Vancouver to little islands all over out there to service or train on these machines.
That's pretty
But
beautiful
guess what?
too.
I've also been to places not a lot of people want to go.
Yeah, the armpit of the country.
Yeah,
right?
I've been to Huntsville, Alabama in August. I've been to Laredo, Texas in July. I've been to Wisconsin in January. So trust me, it's not all
No, that's not all it's cracked up to
cream
be.
cheese,
Yeah.
man. It's
Well, I'd be interested in hearing some more of your stories for sure. Maybe we do this again and
I would love to. I mean,
we'll
I
have
got.
the travels of Tim Laguardia.
I mean, I don't travel much anymore, but I used to be like some of the people here. I used to be gone
Like Nate.
Like Nate. Every
Yeah.
other week I
Yeah.
used to be gone. And I was, unlike here where we kind of have our services split up, where we have one that does kind of the eastern part of the United
Yeah.
States. We have one that does the western part of the United States. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
It was me only that did it. So wherever needed to go, I
That's
went.
where you went.
I went.
Yeah.
So it was fun.
So I want to thank everyone for visiting this third podcast. I hope you all enjoy it. I'd like to thank Tim for being an awesome guest today.
Thank you.
Some
It was
really
fun.
good stories and
It was fun.
yeah,
Had a good time.
absolutely. So visit our website at newtechmachinery.com and our YouTube channel for videos.
Did you say YouTube?
I did.
Yeah.
YouTube channel for any information that you may need. Hopefully we'll see you next time and have a great day.